Blanchard, welcome to the Outperform podcast. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well, and you?
I am doing excellent. Thanks for asking. Um, as we dig into this, I always like to lead in with how would you define outperforming in your life, and what does it mean for you to outperform the norm?
Sure. I think for me, just always like persevering no matter what. So, I look kind of throughout my life of all the challenges that I've gone through, and it's never giving up. That's the way I see outperforming. So, if you're trying to run a mile and it takes you 20 minutes, it's like, okay, that's what it takes you, but you don't give up and say, oh, well, Scott can do it in 10. So, I have to give up now. So I think always doing your best and just persevering no matter what. You can take some breaks and rest and relax, but you can't give up.
Sure. So before we go into some of those specific things, specific stories you have about where you haven't given up, tell people a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. So I have a couple different things I'm actually doing right now. So recently started doing tele-therapy. So that's counseling online. And I have clients in Minnesota and Iowa both. So it's just kind of a video chat back and forth. So people don't have to come right into an office. And it's been really a neat thing. So I really enjoyed it a lot. And then as a part-time gig and kind of as a way of giving back, I am also working in a memory care unit at a local kind of nursing home in a little town I live in Fayette, Iowa.
In where, Iowa?
Fayette, Iowa. So it's about the size of Avon, Minnesota, where I grew up. Small town.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
hmm
that. Okay.
Yeah. Our claim to fame is we have Upper Iowa University here, where my husband Christopher works.
Okay. And
hmm
and where exactly in Iowa is that? Just so to curious.
It is northeast Iowa. It's basically 2 hours south from Rochester.
2 hours south of Rochester.
hmm
Okay. Very
Yeah.
cool. So what is, well, and the first thing I'll say on the teletherapy thing, I still kind of, I don't know if I pinch myself every now and then, but I still find our ability to do things in technology to just be phenomenal, where we could be sitting here, and of course you're in Iowa, but my brother lives in Rome, Italy, and I have clients literally all over the world, where it's just an amazing thing where you can go and you can help people and you can work with them and you can do different things literally wherever they are, as opposed to
hmm
kind of back in the olden days, you know, to
hmm
be face to face to be able to help people. So it's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
It is. It's just interesting. And the other day, one of my clients was actually unpacking her groceries while we started talking. So it can be quite hilarious as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you sometimes see a little bit more of people than than you would like to see.
Yeah, exactly.
So to go into kind of what you started with as far as not giving up, what is
hmm
your outperforming story? I don't know if you have one, or if you could give an example of something where you've really outperformed and you haven't given up.
Sure. I think, I don't know, I was just kind of jotting down notes this morning and thinking over my life a little bit. And I just think in general, it's just, kind of weaves all the way from, being born all the way up to now, and really, growing up with a single parent, a single mom, she did a, wonderful job and all that. But just, that dynamic where you have one parent, you don't have both parents to go to can
Mhm.
kind of be tough. So I think sometimes I struggle just with kind of feeling good enough or, you know, just kind of understanding my place in the world a little bit. So that was kind of a challenge and just kind of slowly working through that. And, eventually found my way to college, and neither of my parents had ever gone to college, but my older brother, Kevin, he had gone and just really encouraged me and said, you're going to love it. It's going to be great. Like, you're smart. Like, you need to do this. And I was like, oh, I guess I really never thought I was that smart of a person. So
Mhm.
yeah, just kind of having some people come alongside and encourage me as I got older, I think helped a lot.
Mhm. I'm a big believer in who you surround yourself with, and how that,
hmm
I mean, nobody outperforms alone. You know, we
hmm
outperform because we surround ourselves with great people that help to pull us up and to help us to be better. So, as far as growing up in a single parent household, and the fact that you've kind of been reflecting on your life maybe and getting ready for this podcast. How do you think that specifically affected you at the time, and maybe how you notice it manifesting itself or playing out in your life right now?
Mm-hmm. I think at the time, kind of like what I was saying with maybe not having quite as much support, when you have a single parent in the house, it's sort of, they have to become both parents, right? So my mom would get home from work and it's like, okay, we have the cooking, the cleaning, the laundry, all that to take care of. But then it's also kind of more the guy stuff, right? Like taking care of the lawn, getting the car to get the oil changed and, those types of things. So it was just sort of one person trying to do everything. And I think, men and women have kind of different perspectives on things, right? So your mom might have a certain perspective on a certain topic and, your dad might have a different perspective. So kind of missing out on some of that. Yeah.
And is there one specific time that you can think of? I know you brought up not feeling good enough, and you've obviously brought up not giving up. Like, is there one specific time where you feel like you were really faced with some adversity and maybe you were doubting yourself? Like, when am I going to get to the finish line, or kind of see the, the light at the end of the tunnel, that you were able to get through that to be able to find something in yourself and to be able to come out better on the other side?
Sure. I would say that was probably like more recently. Well, I guess not super recent because it was about 10 years ago or so when I first got my license as a marriage and family therapist. So that process, was about 3 years of school. I like to say kind of a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And,
I say the same.
I don't know, it makes it sound, more powerful, right? Put
Right.
blood, sweat, and tears into it. But just, the amount of hours that you need actually doing therapy, and then you need like certain hours with groups and couples and families and all of that. And so just seeking out, sort of different places to get all those hours in, and, sometimes working your full-time job and then evenings and weekends, kind of running around to different places, helping out with support groups. Or for a while, I saw a bunch of different young couples and did pre-marriage counseling. So I met at their homes, things like that. So it's just sort of, okay, I've got to get these hours in, and how am I going to do that? And where am I going to do that? And just the expense of the process. Yeah.
Were there ever any times throughout that 3 years, and I can somewhat relate to it. I've got my master's degree, which took me 2 years, and it was a heavy 2 years. But any time during those 3 years where you honestly thought about giving up, or thought, I'm not going to get to the finish line at the end of this?
Yeah. And I think honestly, the 3-year part, it was tough, but I kind of managed through that. But it was after finishing that you then need all of these hours, of working with different types of clients. And sometimes certain places you work may have only individual clients that come in. So to get all of those hours to officially be licensed as a therapist was, to me, the hardest part. So the 3 years was challenging, but after that, kind of getting to that next level, I think personally was the hardest part. And there's definitely times in there where it was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I have the energy for this. Like, I don't know if this is ever going to happen. But it was like, you know what, I've come this far. I want to help people. I want to help them through challenges I've been through. And I know I'm going to be good at this. So I have to put in the time. Just keep going, blood, sweat, and tears. Like, that's all part of it. Keep going. And it's like, it will happen.
Yeah.
And it did.
Yeah. So that kind of brings me to my next question. What led you to want to do marriage and family therapy? Why did you go down that path?
Yeah. So actually, back in college, I just wasn't quite feeling like myself. Like, I just didn't know what was going on with me. Just tired, just not happy, just kind of bummed out. And like, this is weird because I'm generally kind of a bubbly, happy, outgoing person. And finally I was like, maybe I should talk to that counselor lady in the other building, like, I don't even know what she'll tell me, but I don't know, that might be helpful.
Yeah.
So I found my way over there and talked with her, and she's like, oh, Shelly, she's like, I think you have depression. I'm like, like, I have depression? Like, that's weird. Like, I'm not a depressed person.
Yeah.
But that's kind of what it ended up being. And she helped me out a lot and was just like, you know what, this can happen to people. Even if your life seems to be going pretty well, there can be kind of that chemical part of it where something's not quite going right in your brain. And, you know, finding out too later, there's some history on both sides of my family with some depression. It was like, oh, well, this makes sense. You know, it doesn't always have to be like your life is terrible, so you're going to be sad and depressed. It can just kind of hit you a little bit out of the blue. So really getting the help through her and that encouragement and realizing, you know, like this can really happen to anybody. You know, finding that out and getting the help and feeling so much better, it was like, wow, this is pretty powerful. And that's kind of what led me to going like, wow, like it wasn't that hard to, well, it was hard to get into the office, you know, like I got to make an appointment and step in the door. But once I got in there and she was just so nice and friendly and like, okay, this is kind of what you're dealing with. This is how we have to handle it. And yeah, it just gave me a lot of hope. And I was like, I want to help people like that. Like if I can just talk with somebody in my office and help change their whole life, I'm like, that's what I want to do. This is amazing.
Well, good for you for paying it forward.
Yeah. And that's, yeah, kind of a good way of putting it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really what you're doing. And I hate the fact sometimes that I think there's still such a stigma around, I don't know if we just want to call them mental health issues, but specifically depression, where, you know,
Yeah.
I've suffered from, I would say, maybe mild forms of it from time to time. And I've lost both of my parents in the last couple of years, but I still kind of look at it and I'm like, why am I just not happier sometimes on a day-to-day basis? And I think to actually be able to admit that, and specifically to be able to admit it when you look out and you're just like, my life is pretty good. Like I have no reason that I should be feeling bad. I think it takes actually a tremendous amount of courage to be able to do that, because there is that social stigma around it. So good on you for doing that. Like,
yeah. And I think, I mean, the stigma is lessening just, you know, little by little, which is amazing. And, you know, when you're talking about somebody that seems, you know, happy, like they have a great life, I think of like Robin Williams.
Oh, right.
You know, I mean, it was just like so shocking to hear of him, you know, he took his own life and everyone's like, he was so happy. Like, I mean, some of the funniest movies out there he was in, you know, so.
I've heard Tony Robbins say he spent his life making everyone else happy, but he never focused on making himself happy.
Yeah.
I think it's a very interesting thing for all of us to look at. So
True.
if you could describe yourself in one word, what would that be and why?
I would say with this one, empathetic. So I have I think it's like a God-given ability to really put myself in somebody else's shoes and, you know, sort of feel what they feel and just be able to tell even by the look on somebody's face sometimes, even if they have that smile, I can kind of tell, you know what, that's not all that genuine. Like there's something else going on under there. And I think it's from everything I've been through where I can go, hey, I've had that smile before too. And I was really depressed, but you know what? I knew how to do the smile. So everyone wouldn't be like, are you okay? What's wrong with you?
Yeah. So empathy is something that you feel like you were born with, like something that you just that's always come easily to you.
You know, I think it's something that's grown little by little over time. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure it makes you very good at your job.
I think so. I mean, a lot of people, even just outside of my job through, you know, my church or just friends or family will come and talk to me about things and think it's just, you know, I'm a good listener and they know that I haven't had a perfect life. So it's like I can relate to some challenges too. It's not just like, oh, I'm Shelly Blanchard, I've had a wonderful life and let me tell you how to do the same. You know, that's just not very relatable.
So if you were to go back, and I suppose you wouldn't have been Shelly Blanchard at this point, you would have been Shelly Rademacher, as I knew you, but go back to the 20-year-old version of Shelly, and you've obviously been through a lot, and give her some advice Going back to that 20-year-old Mark, what would that advice be?
Yeah, it's funny because when I think about that, that's pretty much right around the time when I had gotten diagnosed with depression. And I started college a year later. So I worked as a nanny first and then was like, okay, I'm ready for college now. Um, but it goes back to what you were saying a little earlier about surrounding yourself, with good people. And I think I would give myself the advice, to find a group of people, even a few people that are older than you, to kind of mentor you, to be there for you, to open up, be vulnerable, and just help them, or, that they would be your help. They would be kind of your little group of cheerleaders, because that's something I've really learned, I would say even more later 20s into my 30s, is to really have that network, and that it's okay to reach out to somebody that you trust or admire and say, can we meet once a month just to talk? Like, I'm going through some tough stuff and I need somebody to kind of walk alongside of me, that type of thing.
Sure. So is there anywhere in particular that you would recommend that somebody, if they're going through a lot right now and they feel like they're out on an island and they're going through it alone, which I think can be a very common thing, is there anywhere that you would recommend that people reach out to find people like that? Is it just friends of theirs, or is it a specific group or church, or like what path do you send people down to be able to do that?
Yeah. And it depends on the particular person. Like, so if it's a client, I obviously encourage them to continue to do the counseling, but if they're a part of, church or any type of faith community, oftentimes I'll ask them, do you have somebody there that you kind of look up to or trust, or maybe like a Bible study leader, or could you talk to the pastor and say, hey, I'm looking for kind of a mentor or prayer partner, or, somebody to kind of cheer me on. Things like that. It just depends. Somebody's dealing with addiction issues, groups like AA or NA have been amazing for a lot of people. There's the Christian group called Celebrate Recovery that generally meets at different churches. That can be a good one to get connected with. So it just kind of depends on, their particular situation. But yeah, definitely even just reaching out to a family member or friend too, and just sharing, because sometimes people don't even reach out to those closest to them because they're worried about, the gossip or the judging, or, they don't want their family to worry about them, but I think a lot of times when people do reach out to those closest to them, they can help point them in the right direction as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then just out of curiosity, because my bachelor's was in psychology, and I actually looked at going into counseling and potentially clinical psychology before I chose sports psychology. So do you have a particular methodology that you use for your counseling, or kind of a philosophy that you subscribe to in regards to that?
Mm-hmm. And I think, a lot of us will answer to that, kind of eclectic, right? There's so many
Right.
different types of approaches that I can't say, oh, well, this is my approach, and everyone that comes in, this is how I'm going to work with you. But one of the things I can say is I remember reading way back in grad school, which feels like a long time ago now, Carl Rogers talks about unconditional positive regard.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know if you remember learning about that at all in psychology.
I know Rogers, certainly.
Yes.
So why don't let's educate the audience on what unconditional positive regard is, because I feel like
Yeah.
it's in our society now more than ever. So what is that?
Yes, that's so true. So basically, unconditional positive regard is sort of like the concept of unconditional love, right? So, a client comes in and, some clients, they may have a really rough history. I mean, they may have, abused other people. They, you know, may have abandoned their children. I mean, there's just so many different things that maybe they could have done, or things that have been done to them. So it's kind of that idea of like unconditional love for them. So, obviously you have those boundaries set in place, but it's sort of no matter what you've done or what's been done to you, like I'm going to still view you in a positive light and do my best to help you and to kind of cheer you on. And that's really a lot of what, counseling helps people with, is that somebody is safe somebody is going to view them as positive no matter what, and kind of cheer them on, that whatever they've done or whatever has been done to them, it's okay. And like, you can talk about anything in this safe space. I will still be there for you, and I will help you kind of accept yourself and, you know, your own flaws or your own issues, and work through them.
I think that's such a powerful thing. The unconditional love, unconditional positive regard for the people that haven't really felt that in their life and have gone through all of what they've done. I mean, it can sometimes be a pathway to high achievement where you don't feel like you're good enough. So you're constantly trying to prove yourself personally, professionally, athletically, whatever it happens to be. You can be a high achiever that way, but you're never going to be fulfilled.
Definitely. Yeah. It's like, you always have that little voice in your head going, you know, you're really not good enough. You know, you've done all this stuff, but, you know, or it's like, oh, you think you're so good. Well, remember what you did in your past, or remember what somebody did to you, you know, those types of things.
That's why I feel like on some level, almost everybody can, well, everyone can, I think, benefit from therapy in some way, just talking these things out, because we
definitely
all. So to wrap this up, you've given a lot of great value, and honestly, it's kind of a good capper. I feel like the unconditional love, unconditional positive regard. Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you, but I didn't?
Let's see. Grade point average jumped to my mind just as a joke.
4.0 or
oh gosh,
you're a 2.0?
No, probably somewhere in between there. No, I don't know if there's really anything else in there. I know. What is your favorite, you know, quote or thing that you kind of go to that helps you keep going?
Okay.
So I have a favorite quote, which is a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. It's so simple and maybe even overdone, but I just love that. And then the other one is kind of the verse I have for my life from the Bible, that is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. So I bring a lot of spirituality into my sessions as well, and just kind of meet people wherever they're at with that. So yeah, that's definitely brought me a lot of hope in my life, is my relationship with God.
Yeah, definitely two powerful quotes / verses to help you outperform. So thanks for sharing those. If
welcome.
People are interested in learning more about Shelly Blanchard and what it is that you do, where can they find you and how can they do that?
Sure. The easiest way to do that is actually going on psychologytoday.com, type in Shelly Blanchard, and my profile will pop up there. It has, you know, my phone number on there, my email, a little bit about me and the type of clients that I work with. So yeah, people can contact me there. And even if you don't want to be a client, but just, you know, have questions or comments or whatever, feel free to reach me through there too, and just say, hey, I have a comment. I don't want to be your client, but here's my 2 cents. And I'd love to hear that as well.
Awesome. That's great. Any other parting shots that you would like to leave the audience with?
I don't know that I have any last words, really. I just want to thank you for inviting me to be on the show. And it's fun to have, you know, grown up with you through the teen years and graduate high school together. And we're kind of doing our own things. And now we get to kind of do a little work together. So absolutely. I just think it's really cool. So I'm excited for the work that you do, and love getting your weekly emails and just kind of checking out what you're up to. And came out of small little town in Minnesota, and we're, I think, both doing our best to do great things. So I think that's really exciting.
You never know the places we'll go. I'm pretty sure that was a Dr. Seuss book, right? Oh, the places.
Yep. Exactly.
But on behalf of all the listeners, all the viewers, Shelly, we want to thank you for your time. Thanks for all the value you've provided and for empowering and for helping others to outperform. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. And to
You too.
all of you, thanks for listening and watching. Take care.